Another lesson I learned is this thing called the minimum effective dose. What is the minimum amount of intervention that can change a person? Right? This is important because if you overdose, you get reverse results. For example, people who come to search inside yourself, which we advertise as an emotion intelligence class, the first meditation is 2 minutes, which we just went through, because that's the minimum effective dose. If you do 5 minutes, half the people will not show up after that. Okay? 2 minutes is enough for them to go, oh, I get this. I can see how it works. But not enough to say, oh, I can do this. This sitting there all day, like, ooh, you know. So you have to understand what the dosage is. And again, you experiment with this. Finally, I think it's really important to get the right instructor. Preferably a Chinese guy with an accent. You know, oh, can I tell you a joke? Okay, so a slight deviation. I was teaching the neuroscience of empathy with Tom Lewis. And then after the class, he came to me and he says, Meng, I figured out why you're so good at this. I was like, why? He said, it's your accent. I was like, with that accent, everything you say sounds like words of wisdom. So for those of you wondering why the Asian guys are so good at this, you thought it was wisdom. But no, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding about the accent. But really, really what you want is a person first with deep practice. And I define that as at least 2,000 hours of meditation practice, which unfortunately disqualifies most of humanity, right, from my instructor pool. And they must know they must own the science, not just understand it, own it. It's part of their being. They must have credibility with their customers. Right? So if you walk into a room with engineers, you have credibility, whatever that means. You must be able to speak the right language, and you must have presence, whatever that means. So it turns out it's very hard to find these type of instructors. And I haven't figured out how to make this work, because the pool is so small. I mean, there's like Norman Fisher, and then there's like Mirabai Bush, and okay, and maybe you, or something, right? That's a very small pool. So this is my prepared comments. Before questions, I want to end my prepared comments with a poem, if nobody minds. Oh, before that, let me see if I miss out any. Oh, I missed out some cartoons. Sorry, 2 more cartoons. So this is about bringing meditation to business. You know, here we follow the Dow Jones Index. And I don't know what this means, but it's just very funny. Right? So mindfulness class, don't teach anybody who lost their mind. Also, for those who cannot see, if somebody say, excuse me, can I be excused from mindfulness class? I just lost my mind. Okay, the last cartoon of the day, which relates to my closing poem. For those of you who cannot see, it's a master meditating, and the student asks, Master, what are you doing? The master says, I'm saving the world. Right? It comes from this observation that saving the world is really tough. Okay? Saving the world, creating world peace, and so on, whatever big goals you have, they are so tough that if you strive to save the world, you will not succeed because it's not sustainable. However, and here's the catch: if you concentrate instead on developing compassion and aspiration, that's all you do. And then you just do naturally what comes naturally to you, right? So you don't try to save the world, you just create aspiration and compassion and do whatever you want to do. My theory is that if you do that, then saving the world becomes sustainable. Right? Because if you're strong in aspiration and compassion, whatever is the most natural thing to do is also the right thing. And then that is sustainable indefinitely. So, with that insight, because I'm an engineer pretending to be a poet, I wrote a poem. And the poem is called the Lazy Bodhisattva. And it's addressed to you, the audience. So, the Lazy Bodhisattva. With deep inner peace and great compassion, aspire daily to save the world, but do not strive to achieve it. Just do whatever comes naturally. Because when aspiration is strong and compassion blossoms, whatever comes most naturally is also the right thing to do. Thus, you, the wise, compassionate being, save the world while having fun. And with that, thank you. For those of you just waking up, we have about 15 minutes for questions. Any questions that you ask me and call my bluff? Oh, first question. Okay, first question gets a present. Yay. Yeah, welcome.
I just had a question because it struck me when you began talking that you were out for your walk and this very natural aspiration arose, your intention arose that you wanted to save the world. So I was actually thinking
There's a
about
mic.
that.
Yeah.
I was thinking about the moment that your aspiration arose.
Yes.
Because you began by talking about your aspiration, and
That's
then you
right.
ended with aspiration.
Right.
And how do you help people cultivate aspiration, or is it simply natural? How do you actually think about it, I guess, is my question.
Mental habit. So aspiration is something that comes naturally, but also can be increased with mental habits. And the way to do that, the best way to do that is Tonglen. Tonglen, for those of you who don't know, is a practice in Tibetan Buddhism that about developing compassion. And the way Tonglen works is, I'll tell you how it works and I'll tell you what we change. The way it works is you sit, so you calm your mind, and then you imagine yourself absorbing your own suffering. So you visualize suffering as thick, disgusting black stuff. And you breathe it in, and then use your heart to make it good. And then you breathe out goodness to the world. Then after that, you breathe in all the suffering of all this gooey, disgusting stuff for other people. And you purify it and give to the world. And then you do it for the entire world. You breathe in the gunk of the entire world. And then you transform it and breathe it out. That practice is extremely powerful. The Dalai Lama does it every day. The very first time I did it, I felt a permanent increase in my level of self-confidence. And the reason is, after I did that, I realized that I'm not afraid of suffering. I feel capable of breathing in other people's suffering. And once you do that, once you're not afraid to suffer, your confidence just increases. Right? We tried that in Search Inside Yourself. It didn't work out. I wonder why. So we have I changed it. I call it the practice multiplying goodness. So instead of breathing in gunk, you breathe in your own goodness. Right? And you visualize goodness as white light, a faint light coming from you. And then you use your heart to multiply by 10, and then breathe out goodness to the world. Right? And then you breathe in everybody's goodness, and so on. Visualizing, if you want to, visualize as white light, multiply. And that creates a couple of mental habits. The first mental habit is the habit of seeing goodness in other people. Like no matter how bad the guy is, because if you do that a lot, you say, there's some goodness in that guy, because I breathe it in every day. Right? So that's the first mental habit. The second mental habit is I can increase goodness. I can increase goodness, even me. Right? And the third mental habit is I want to give goodness to the world. And it's a very pleasant exercise. It's because it's about goodness. And I think that practice will help people create aspiration. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, that hand came up first. Can I give you a present? Kind of far away, but anybody mind if I throw it that far? Okay.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you what difference it has made at Google that you have introduced mindfulness and compassion practices. And specifically, I know I'm very interested in the bottom-up culture and the creativity at Google. And so what difference has it made? And then, how does it affect the culture? And if you want to say more about the bottom-up nature and the creativity.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. The first question, whether it changed Google, so I tell you the expected answer is that you change our culture, blah, blah, blah. But it turns out not to be true. It turns out because Google is a bit of a special case, right? Because we already have that type of culture. So the prominent parts of our culture is that we think we can change the world, and we try to change the world for the better, right? We are always trying to serve greater good. And so that part of the culture is already there. And what I found mindfulness did for these people is it reinforces it. And as we get more people into the company, that starts to dilute. And so having mindfulness reinforces that in the breadth-wise, so depth-wise and breadth-wise. Also, I think the main impact that I've seen so far is on the individual level. Like people who take search inside yourself, they tell me their lives change. And sometimes it's just very simple things. One lady, she said she found that she can cuddle her husband again. Right? Small things, but profound small things. So my hope is that I haven't like, there's no empirical data, but my hope is those things, because now they're different people, they change their team, and that has impact. The second effect is I found that it gives people permission. Right? So there were a lot of mindfulness practitioners, and they sort of kept quiet, but because Meng is so noisy about mindfulness and world peace, and so on, it gives them permission to talk about themselves. And that created a culture of more openness in a good way. Yeah. I've forgotten the other question. Bottom up. Bottom up, I think that was it, yeah. So yeah. Sorry. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Or your aspiration for world peace?
I took a walk. So therefore, all of you should be taking walks. Yeah. Yeah. I think you raised your hand earlier. Yes. Okay.
Thank you. I'm really intrigued by the multiplying goodness practice because I have been trained in Tonglen, and I'm wondering if I feel like in our culture we actually have a fear of relating to suffering. So, but I also really appreciate that actually people might need to see the goodness in others and in themselves first, because I think we're also trained to see our not basic goodness first. So do you think this this practice of multiplying goodness also gives people more confidence in being able to relate to suffering, but not get too bogged down in it? Are you seeing that?
Yes, I've seen it at least once. So I had a conversation with one of one of the people who was very bothered by the oil spill. So a couple of months ago, there was an oil spill in the Gulf, and she wanted to do Tonglen, but she could not. So I suggested this practice. Instead of breathing suffering, breathing goodness, and it worked really well for her. So it's not yet a traditional practice because we made it up, and I'm thinking you will be a traditional practice in 100 years from now, by which time I should be quite old, I think. Yes, sir?
In 1995, I started working for Lucent Technologies with a PhD in 19th century American literature, Thoreau and Emerson. My first month there, I realized people were staring at monitors all day, and I built a program for them called Heart in the Marketplace, bringing in the humanities. And I had a few folks show up once in a while, and then it started to get more and more popular, and people realized, well, I can get out of my left brain just for an hour and get into my right brain and just experience poetry or other humanities. I carried that over when I left Lucent to Sun Microsystems. It was very popular. It included emotional intelligence. And then when I went to teach full-time at the University of Colorado, the business school, I brought in emotional intelligence. I was told it wasn't rigorous enough for finance and accounting majors. So there seems to be a mental block or it's too woo-woo or whatever. Whereas there is science to it, the mirror neurons that affect empathy as well as the amygdala. But I find our educational system is fighting back, which is sad. So, what do you think?
Yes, I think one of the biggest issues we need to address, maybe the biggest thing, is measurement or quantification. Like how do you quantify how well this works? I put some thoughts into this, and it's actually very hard. And the reason it's hard is noise. The data is very noisy. For example, can I say that after taking SIY, sales increased for those participants by 10%? It turns out it's very hard because there's so many other factors involved that we cannot attribute just to SIY. So I guess that's the next big challenge, measuring. Yeah, and if you know the answer, I'll be. And once I think once we solve that problem, we will solve the problem just talked about. One more comment on that. I also think, and I'm speculating, and mostly probably I'm wrong, but I think that the first applications of widespread application of mindfulness will happen in the place where the rewards are compelling and immediate. And I see two possible places. The first is hedge fund managers, right? So because they are under constant stress and seeing data all the time. So if there's a way to find the hedge fund managers who have deep in mindfulness earn 10% more or something, whatever the number is, huge. Every hedge fund manager will want to meditate from that point on. The problem with that is that in the finance world, and I'm going to put it courteously, it's very hard to distinguish between being good and being lucky. Right. So again, there's a problem of noise, the noisy data. The second application, I think is more likely, but this is problematic, is uniform services. Right? There's a story in Iraq where a bunch of American soldiers were, I don't remember the exact details, but they were like in a situation where they were faced by hostile civilians coming towards them. And the commander had high enough emotional intelligence. He gave an order to his men. He said, everybody smile. Yeah, and that eased the tension. Right? So if we have more of those examples, if every commander has that mindfulness and compassion and can think goodness on the spot, then we have more of this, then it becomes compelling. Right? But of course, there's this other problem that the other people say, I don't know, the thing that the army is using, maybe we shouldn't be using it. So yeah, I haven't figured it out, but these are my thoughts. I think you put out your hand earlier.
Yeah, but you just answered my question.
Oh, okay. Yes, ma'am. Let's see how much time we have. We have maybe time for, after you, one last question. Okay, okay, you
Thank
please.
you.
Okay.
Search inside yourself seems like a great way to engage individuals. What are your thoughts about how to involve teams and the whole organization? Do you see that there could be an extension of mindfulness to groups?
Yes, I was hoping that the social, I mean the interpersonal practices in Search Inside Yourself will bleed out. In addition to that, something very interesting happens. So the very first class of every Search Inside Yourself, so we have 7 classes. The first class, I asked them to do mindful listening for 3 minutes. Right? So the idea is, these are total strangers to each other, coming from different parts of the company. I say, okay, you pair up, and then person A, you have a monologue, 3 minutes. Person B, you do nothing but listen. And if you want to, you cannot, but you cannot say anything. And then you switch. And then after that, you got 3 minutes of meta conversation. Talk about how was that conversation. So a total of 9 minutes. The finding, or the most frequent feedback is that this person and we are now friends. Right? It's like, they came in total strangers. In 9 minutes, they are friends. So that's what listening for 3 minutes each way does to you. Right? And they say, yeah, I've people in my next cube for a year, I don't even know that guy, and this person is my friend. So there's something about listening that makes friends, and I'm hoping that if we have whole teams in my class, just doing these simple things can create team cohesion. Thank you. Okay, last question for the day. Maybe you got a present for the last question.
I know that Google culture is unique in corporate America pretty much because it's very open and, as you say, bottom up. And encouraging of creativity. And so I have to say, I was really surprised when you said that you are not allowed to use the word spirituality. That even though that you have to have a conspiracy to bring wisdom practices here. And I'm surprised by that, partially because, okay, what's up? And then secondly, because the scientific evidence shows so clearly the benefits of meditation, for example, and other spiritual practices in so many ways. What do you think is going on there, and how can we change culture to be more open and accepting of, actually, there is no separation between science and so-called spirituality. I think that's the healing of our culture that you're working on. And thoughts, please.
The conspiracy question is very easy. That was a joke. Because we call ourselves a conspiracy because it's fun, right? It's called the conventionality, right? So, I mean, it's like everybody knows that this group of people are doing this. So, I was just joking about conspiracy. The other question is more relevant. Remind me again, what was spirituality. Because even in Google, there are subcultures. So the engineering subculture is different from the HR subculture. And so HR people, they are a little bit more sensitive. So I did this work as part of HR. I was the first engineer ever to move to HR. And so I had to learn their subculture. And one of the things they say is, don't say spiritual. It's a HR thing. Because I understand them because they are subject to, how do I say it courteously? I won't say it. In every company, especially successful companies, you're always subject to frivolous lawsuits. There'll be bad people wanting to sue you for stupid things. So HR people have to be very careful. Yeah. I don't know. They can find something. But the culture of HR is caution. Yeah. So that's where it's coming from. Yeah. Okay. I think we're out of time. And with that, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.